You, you're not gonna
I'm New York City County Commissioner McCoy's admin manager, and I live in River's Edge subdivision, is close to Pecon Grove. And I think road and bridge are priority for me.
All right. Great, 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 great. We have two more members of our team outside, and it looks like we may have some more folks joining us. All right, let's talk about what the People's Budget Town Hall is. And I'm just going to read a couple of notes here to make sure I stay on track because your boy might start rambling here. The People's Budget Town Hall meeting, there are a few components of why this is a useful tool. And I'll tell you, we're not original. When I was running for office, I heard about this concept of participatory budgeting, where the typical participatory budgeting is where you actually involve the community in the decision-making process about how budgets are made. Some communities actually give residents, they set aside money and tell residents, you have, $3 million to spend. How do you want the government to spend it? And they do that based on surveys and a whole host of things. But what we're doing is, there's not a category of money that we can give to say, hey, here's how would you allocate it. But we do want to get feedback about what it is that you want to prioritize in our county services as a whole for our general fund budget. This is to help us to define county budget priorities. You get an opportunity to give us feedback on your priorities, and then that is taken to help inform some of the county's priorities. This is a community-led process. I'm going to do a presentation just to brief you on what this is, and then you're going to have the opportunity to go into a breakout group and then actually discuss and deliberate about how to spend the county's money, your taxpayer dollars. This creates an accountability framework for our elected officials, because what we're going to do, we have today's session, we have the two other sessions that we held last week, and there's an online survey we've been encouraging people to fill out, and we're going to encourage y'all to fill out an individual survey too before you leave. All of that data we're going to put into a report, and we're going to publish it. And it's a way for you to hold us accountable to forming priorities around what you've told us you want to see in your county government. And the last part is that this is a great way to create research or to gather research. I am a big data person. There's the quantitative data and there's the qualitative data. It's all important, but we can't have one without the other if we're to make the best decisions. And so you all participating in this process helps us to get to that. Let's talk about the services that our county actually offers. So there are a few different areas. We have over 1,000 personnel in our law enforcement agencies. That includes the sheriff's office, constables' offices. We have 4 constables' offices. That's our fire marshal's office. We have over 1,000 personnel in law enforcement. And we have to, by law, the sheriff is responsible for managing the county jail. We maintain over 2,700 miles of roadway across Fort Bend County. So that takes a lot to maintain those roads and improve those roads. We have the drainage district. When people are opening new businesses or new communities are being built, we have folks who have to get inspected and permitted, and a whole host of other things, parks, libraries. Every public library in Fort Bend County is a county library. Even those in Sugar fits into there. Talking about public safety, our sheriff's office, those are very important. And so we definitely keep up with that. Also, I will mention, because this is a kind of an interesting one, you see the Toll Road Authority. So it's a separate governmental entity. Fort Bend Toll Road Authority and the Grand Parkway Toll Road Authority, but we provide oversight. It was created by Fort Bend County. We provide oversight and we appoint the board members, but that's also a service that the county provides to you. All right, so let's talk about what we learned from the budget process, or what we learned from the last two processes we've done and what have been some of the results. When we did this, we heard a lot from folks about the need for more law enforcement officers. And we recognized that at the time we had over 140 vacancies in our sheriff's office. That means that there were a bunch of vacancies for the deputies who were supposed to be on the street. And where the biggest deficit was folks to staff the county judge. We didn't have a lot of people who really wanted to do that job. And those are mainly civilian jobs. Don't require folks to be a certified peace officer. And so hearing that public safety was top of mind, working with our sheriff's department, working with our other law enforcement agencies to close that gap. And we were able to make a historic pay increase for our law enforcement officers. And we brought that vacancy down to, I think it's just under 40 positions that are now still left vacant. And so big win. We did some other things with that too, but the feedback from the public helped to inform that. We heard a lot about the lack of access to support services for seniors. That was something we heard about in the very first iteration of this. We only have one senior center that the county has in the entire county, and that's all the way over in Missouri City. People on this side of the county did not have access to a free center to do things like workout and have access to a pool to work out in, unless you have a nice neighborhood like New Territory and you get those sorts of facilities. But that's not the vast majority of people who live here. And so we are next in actually a few weeks, because we're in February now. I keep saying next month, but in a few weeks, we're going to break ground on a 24,000 square foot senior center in Mission Bend that will include an indoor natatorium, a workout facility, a cafe, a big event space that the public can check out. Health has been a real big topic for folks, and the senior center is going to incorporate a community garden where folks can check out raised beds, and we are partnered.
That's so far ways away. In our neighborhood,
Well, so this will be the one for on this side of the community. I got you right now. We have to start somewhere, and so say again. I got you. So we're starting, right? And I think that's helpful feedback, and we'd love to hear more from you today. But that's where that feedback came from. And we heard a great need on this side of the county. And so that's where we started with some land the county already owned to develop a facility.
The other location is all the way out in Missouri City Community Center.
Yeah.
The only other senior center in the county.
Correct.
So we're starting.
Yep. Parks was also another concern. And so we've been developing and improving some of our parks system. We hear a lot about that in libraries. That keeps coming up as top 2 important priorities for folks as these third spaces for people. And so we've been investing in that as well. The other thing that was sure. No, okay.
If I don't ask, I forget.
Yeah, no, go for it. That's what we're here for.
We did a bond, was it a couple of years ago, 2 years ago,
Mhm.
for a lot of money for parks.
Yep.
But I wasn't sure that, I think some of it was for the city, but some was for the county as well, right?
Well, that was in 2023, that was a county parks bond. So that's all, money that the county doles out. We have a couple of partnerships with the city of Sugar Land.
I was thinking, we put that bond money there, but I don't think we've seen the results of that bond money.
Well, so we'll talk about some of that on the back end here. We've actually been doing quite a bit on that.
Cricket courts, I thought that was scheduled for a new territory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about revenue and where all the money comes from to fund our government. So there's a lot of talk every time that our state legislature is in session about property taxes. And it is a major issue for a lot of residents because it gets to affordability. Now, I'm going to refrain, at least until the end of this presentation, from getting on my soapbox about Texas's property tax system, because I have all sorts of issues with it. But as much as we hear in Austin them talk about property taxes, you see a list here. The state does not collect property tax revenue at all. but they have a whole lot of other sources. So we pay federal income tax, and we see the return of that in the form of grants that come back to us to help with things like community development, some of our highway infrastructure, those sorts of things. At the state level, they have a whole lot of in revenue streams. So one is our sales tax. 6.25% goes to the state. The other 2% goes to cities that collect sales tax revenue. And in very limited circumstances, the county gets to now collect some sales tax revenue, and that goes back into investing in infrastructure. They get oil and gas royalties, gas tax, utilities tax. When you do your car registration fees, they collect that money, franchise tax, the sin taxes, lottery, and all those court costs. A huge portion of that goes back to the state. At the county level, we collect revenue primarily from property taxes. And we, with all of our property taxes, so the primary function for county commissioners and commissioners court is setting the property tax rate that the county collects from you for your property. And then we determine how we spend that money with the revenue that comes from those taxes. But who can tell me what is actually the largest piece of the pie in your property tax bill? Any guesses? School district taxes. What's after that? Any guesses? Nope. The jurisdiction, the governmental entity that collects your property taxes after that. So schools, largest one. Usually it's your city is probably around second. The county, so for folks who live in a levy improvement district like y'all do here in New Territory, that's a big one. And people who live in municipal utility districts where they're outside of a city limits, that's another sizable part. The county oftentimes represents the smallest portion of your overall property tax bill, in most cases around the county. And for that, you get all of those services that I listed on the previous screen. But essentially, you pay your taxes. That goes to the tax assessor collector, and the tax assessor collector dishes that out to all the different governmental entities, the county being one of those. So again, your property taxes, the Central Appraisal District is a separate governmental entity from Fort Bend County. They set your appraisal value. You multiply that by the tax rate that you have for your different governmental entities. And that is what you get as your property tax bill to fund all of these governmental services. So our county budget is broken down into 5 general areas. And you have this, you can follow along in the presentation before you in case that's kind of hard to read that far away. But those 5 areas are health, community resources and social services, infrastructure, court system support, and law enforcement or probation. And you can see some of the things that fall underneath each of those categories. In health, we have a behavioral health services that works with those folks who might be in our jail or our court system who have behavioral health issues that need to be addressed. We have an ambulance, EMS, like I talked about, public health department. We take care of things like animal control and animal services and environmental services, all that. In community resources, social services, that's community development. So all those monies we get from the Housing and Urban Development Department and how those support the indigent in our community and community development, we do that. Veteran services falls under there, our library systems, parks and recreation, fire marshal. Infrastructure, those are your roads and bridges, maintenance of those 2,700 miles of roadway that the county is responsible for maintaining. Our drainage district falls under there. Public transportation, we actually have a bus system in Fort Bend County. It's not like what you see in Metro in Houston, but it's a demand response. And so we do have that. Those are something that we have the ability to do. Yes. Yep. So I'd love to hear your feedback when we do our breakout session for sure. Yep. So court system support. So we have a bunch of different courts. And so that's one area that statutorily we're required for providing funding for. And we actually just added 2 new district courts this past legislative session. The state granted us permission to form 2 new courts. That's important. All of our justices of the peace, we have, I think, 7. We have 7 now. We just created a new one. And then law enforcement. So the biggest part of that is our county jail and our sheriff's department. But our constables, adult probation, all of those are the different areas of our county budget. So I am going to stop here. And we're going to do a breakout session. I think we're going to be in one group. Just do it all in one group. Okay, so we can reorient that table. Ali, my chief of staff here, is going to explain what we're going to do. And can I get our three members who just joined to introduce yourselves? Everybody else, we introduce ourselves. Just your name, what neighborhood you live in, and the most important or your favorite county service. Would you like to go first, good sir?
Oh, sure. Steve Cooperman. I live here, and I'm not allowed to talk about aliens, I understand. But bike lanes, I think, would be a really good improvement for our neighborhood here. A community center. Like I said, we've got a big building down the street that needs a purpose, and we certainly have senior citizens here. So, yeah, I know. I could ride my bike to it. That would be really nice.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here. Up next.
Ross, I'm from New Territory. Anna told me about the event just like an hour ago, so I just thought I'd show up. I live like just across the street. Yeah, I don't know. In terms of issues, I think infrastructure is a big one. Just, making sure we have, I know it's Texas, but as walkable of, an environment as possible, by Houston standards at least. And yeah, it's probably my biggest one, just kind of parks, recreation, and walkability, I think.
Yep, I'm Grace.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Streaming,
Okay.
and so that the people streaming can hear you.
My name's Grace Cooperman. I told my dad that he couldn't talk about aliens, but you guys can see that's going well. I was raised here in New Territory, and my favorite policy, I think, area at the county level would probably be Parks and Rec. My favorite day is the day I can spend at Imperial Park with my dogs and look around the trails. So I definitely love when we invest in our parks.
Great. All right. I'm going to give you guys a little walkthrough about what we're about to do. And then we're going to just move to one table in the back, and you guys are going to help create a county budget. So first, I want to make sure each of you gets one of these sheets. What does Fort Bend County need to be safe and thriving? Hopefully by now, whether this is your first time, you're unfamiliar with the county, or you work for the county and you kind of know what goes on, that gives you a broad list of all the different functions the county does. What we want to know is, in your heart of hearts, what makes you feel that Fort Bend County needs it to be safe and thriving? So just to put it out there, you can say whatever you want. I really love the libraries, parks, health, wellness. I really like behavioral health services, whatever it may be. Not department.
Big pie in the sky.
Yeah.
In an ideal state, what does any community need to be safe and thriving? Take yourself out of
There you go.
What does a community need? If you were to define a safe and thriving community, what are the elements that would make up a safe and thriving community?
There you go. Ideal world, what elements? So once we do that, we're going to talk about it. And all this discussion is going to get us primed for thinking about what are your priorities and what are the priorities of all of y'all as a community. And then we're going to go step by step, and we're going to build a budget for our community right here. And we're going to talk about why each of you chose what you did. So be prepared to talk. You are participating. And then we're done with it. We're going to come back here and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about your priorities and how you would invest your money and how it actually compares to the real thing at the county level. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be interactive. So whenever you guys can, please make sure to fill this out. What do you think in your ideal world makes a community safe and thriving? And we'll talk about that, and we'll dole out some coins to participate on the budget. So there's plenty of pens back here if you need one. And then once you're done, just come on back and we'll stand around. That is a good question. I gather here. So fill out your form. And by the way, all the information you're giving us, even this qualitative information, we are collecting it because ultimately this is the feedback that Commissioner McCoy uses in determining how he should spend money that may be available on additional services. So please make sure you give us as detailed feedback as you can. Once again, we do take this information and we do utilize it for Commissioner to talk about your priorities in the middle of our budget season. Gather chairs.
Yeah, there's 8, right?
Three. Participate. No, no, no. I need, it's fun. Here we go. I'll give everyone 10 to start with.
Joker, I know. It's fun.
I'm not.
No, money is fun. Yeah, it's a,
Have a seat.
yeah. If you say so.
Here, I'm going to give you 10, sir. Come on in. Pedro, right? Your name's Pedro, right? Oh, perfect. So these are going to be 10 coins. Just hold on to it. We're going to keep going. Sandy, I got yours right here. And then Grace and Anna, I got your chips over here.
I feel like we're playing poker or something.
Something like that.
That's cool.
I do need him. I do need him so we can play.
Well, I have a few things in my mind, but Steve got me thinking about all these facilities that we have that are just sitting bare. because
So,
of what we was-
I will just say Overlane, why are some of these facilities where the county can make investments? Those happen to be in unincorporated areas. So New Territory originally was unincorporated, right, when we had all the MUDs. But since we became a part of the city of Sugar Land, the city of Sugar Land is primarily responsible. So the roads inside this neighborhood used to be part of the county log. Now they're part of the city of Sugar Land's log. So if you see a pothole or anything, that would be the responsibility of the city now, not the county. So a lot of the roadways, a lot of the jurisdiction is outside those formal city limits. A lot of those responsibilities that a city would provide now are falling on the county. So that's also causing, especially as growth's gone that way and annexation isn't really happening anymore, the county is essentially having to turn and perform city functions, or some of them anyway, like maintaining roadways. Waiting on a couple folks. Why don't we start by talking about what each of us said makes the community safe and thriving? Sir, you want to start?
Well, I mean, we can all talk about law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talk about law enforcement. To have those patrols and things like that. I guess, safe.
It doesn't have to be just one thing, right?
Well, no, I'm just thinking. I'm
Mhm.
gonna start thinking.
You want me to come back to you?
Yeah, come back.
All right. Aaron, what makes a community safe and thriving, in your opinion?
Communication.
Communication. Okay. You want to know what's happening. Okay. You want to feel like you can talk to each other. Okay. Anything else?
This communication, I would say,
Okay. Sandy?
Healthy communities, right? So
Mhm.
the community is healthy and they're thriving. Also, I would say law enforcement, EMS services.
Okay. So a safety component, but also health, right? If a community, you want to be healthy in it, you wanted to make sure you are healthy. That makes sense. Yes. Anna?
Yeah, of course, safety is first and foremost, because let's say you want to go to a park and be healthy, but if it's not safe to go, then what do we have, right? So it's all kind of interconnected. But healthy also, when we live in a climate that's 100 degrees for 6 months out of the year, we need to be mindful that parks and rec is not necessarily a safe place to be outside a lot of times. So we might have to think out of the box and be more intentional to do indoor free spaces. Like, I'll tell you, I had this experience with my son. He was younger. He wanted to play basketball. And, you know, the elementary school had an outdoor court. Now they've caged our schools, so you can't even go out and play. And here, even though we live in new territory and pay $1,200 a year annual fees, the open gym is only open from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 2 for free. So kids don't.
Yeah, that got
have
worse in 10
access-
years.
Yes, kids don't
Mm-hmm.
have access to a space to play. And I'm talking about in the Texas heat, how long are you gonna have a kid outside playing? So it would be nice to use, like Steve said, or have some intentional spaces and work cooperatively with city entities to have these spaces that are free to families, free to seniors, to exercise, to play a game, and have that open without having to spend, because everything costs money, and you can't leave down the driveway without having to spend something. So that's my thing, the safety, but also the health is interconnected, and we need to be mindful of the climate and having accessible, affordable options to be safe and exercise.
Okay, so I think you covered everyone in more. So we'll keep going. Pedro?
Well, I agree that the basic rights of course, enforcement, the fire department, EMS services. I just learned that that's something that is part of the county budget. So yeah, I think that's important. Libraries, of course, that's important. Improving libraries, animal services. Yeah, that's I got my dog from there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, that's true.
So it is that's quite important.
So I will say, I think one of the reasons we all love Fort Bend County is we have all these great things. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know is we're one of the few counties that actually has a full library system. Every library in this county is a county library. We have a full park system, right? Not a lot of places have that. We also have EMS. So all the EMS you see, except in the city of Sugar Land, that's a county service that is provided with your tax dollars. So Commissioner, you talked about all the things we do. I always like to tell folks, when you look at it, we're your third or fourth on most tax bills. You get the most bang for your buck with these county services. So just hyping up Fort Bend and all we live here. Grace?
I think on mine I put.
Oh, did I take a sheet?
No, my sheet's right here on the corner.
Mhm.
I put public transit options. When I moved back to Fort Bend County, I was really surprised to learn that there was actually like a public bus that I could take into the center, like into city center, into Houston. And that bus was really nice. And that's not something you take for granted. So I think it's really great that we invest in our public transit options, especially just in terms of like accessibility for all. I think that's really important. And then obviously our community parks. And then I put social services. I think when you have a very much a suburban sort of area, a lot of stuff is not seen, but you know it's happening. So continuing to invest in social services for those who are dealing with whatever they're dealing with behind closed doors is super, super important.
Yeah, a lot of folks, I'll mention a couple things. A lot of folks don't know that we do have these pockets where folks do not have the same amenities that you have everywhere else. And so one of the things Commissioner McCoy has been really focusing on is how do we make sure that every community in our community has access to what they need. So no, that's a great point. And transit, Commissioner McCoy and his colleagues, we actually opened up a new route. So if you work downtown, you can now take a bus from Sugar Land into the city. And so that's a new route that opened along with the Med Center route.
Yep, I took that one into work. Highly recommended. It's great.
Great hearing that.
It's great. It's on time, which is surprising because it's on 59.
Sir?
So I think for me, it was put down a bunch of different things. Sense of like interconnectedness and just kind of like I touched on earlier, like walkability is a part of that, but also third places.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's the suburbs after all, so it's not easy. But I mean, I think for me, like I've spent the last better part of the last decade or so, like living in more urban environments, like in Austin, DC. And so what I really love about those places is how interconnected the urban core is. And I know it's Fort Bend, it's not, you know, necessarily interloop Houston, but doing as good of a job as possible to have an interconnected community that has third places, and not just parks, but also, you know, city centers, commercial centers that can be third places as well. Just integrating it all together, I think it builds just a higher trust community. It builds culture, right? And so, I guess making good use of space for that, development of, you know, vacant spaces. There is quite a bit, you know, in this neighborhood, especially of vacant spaces that I think, and I don't know exactly what jurisdiction that's under, but you know, space. So just making sure that, I guess, all space, not just for cosmetic reasons, but for real functional reasons, is developed properly and to where it can just make the community more integrated.
Absolutely, and definitely bring that up at the end of the presentation and ask Commissioner McCord what he's doing to kind of address those issues, because that's something we talk about a lot. Sir, you want to tell us what, in your opinion, makes this community safe and thriving for you?
If I would have an opinion. You know, what I would really like to see would be streets that are adequate for the traffic. You know, our streets here, we're so overgrown them. And it just, we have a traffic jam out here every day.
I saw on Heatherton, yeah.
And the street isn't wide enough, you know? Yes, you could build it wider. I'd really like to say that we need bike lanes on that street, but it'd be crazy dangerous, because right now there's barely enough room for the two lanes of cars, right?
Yep.
But I do think, you know, bike lanes for mobility so people can get around easier. I think life evolves and people change the way they do things. If we can make it easy for them to be able to get around doing things like taking a bike, an electric bike or something, because they're getting so low cost. I think within X number of years, they're going to replace regular bikes. And people are, you go to the schools now and you see fleets of them coming in. And they're zipping all over. They need a place to be able to ride them safely so that they're not interfering with the cars. And I was telling Dexter, or Mr. McCoy, however he likes to be addressed, my buddy, that around Homeward Way is a perfect place.
Oh, 100%.
You know, it would fit perfectly. Down New Territory Boulevard, it wouldn't, but there's things we can do to fix New Territory Boulevard. And, you know, that's probably not a subject to bring up right now, but I'm happy to talk to you about that when you're buying me coffee.
Can I interject really quick?
I
There
don't
was
know,
supposed
it
to
depends
be-
if it's on point.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was supposed to be a traffic study for that intersection in New Territory Boulevard, where we had a vehicular homicide. Unfortunately, one of our neighbors was struck at the crosswalk with his
You know,
dog.
I've actually got two easy answers to fix it.
Yeah,
One is, don't allow left turns into those, the neighborhoods there, only right turns coming out of it, right? Because you've got a stop sign there, everybody has to stop if people want to make left turns. If they can't make left turns, they can only go straight, we get rid of those stop signs.
Yeah, unfortunately
Now,
for that
people that live
neighborhood,
there aren't gonna
that's only
be
one
happy.
way in and out of those two neighborhoods, especially
People that
Sterling
live there aren't
Heights,
gonna
yeah.
be happy, but it solves
Chase,
the traffic problem. The other thing that would solve it could be a traffic circle instead of a light. So that way traffic doesn't stop. People have to learn to go around it, and that's a toughie in Texas.
You're going to love some of the things Commissioner's going to tell you about what we're working on, man. But no, traffic safety is a huge thing. No, yeah.
they're still working on it.
The other thing I'd really like
yes,
to
sir.
see is utilizing some of the empty space we've got for senior centers. If you go our park down here by the soccer field, a lot of times in the morning, you'll see groups out there working out. You'll see people underneath that big shed, and I've seen anywhere from like 10 to 40, 50 people under there, you know, getting together in the mornings. And it would be a great thing to be able to utilize that huge empty grocery store and make it a regional senior center.
I agree. I will say the reason why it won't happen there is that's Center Point. It says-
No, he's talking about the old Randall.
The old
Oh, Randall. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the park.
No.
Yeah,
The old Randall.
Uh,
And I mean, it's, when I lived up north, actually that was kind of common. You know, they
Yep.
would take those over and make them into senior centers. And eventually, you know, some of them got really big and they had to literally build a purpose-built building.
Yep.
But I've seen some really nice ones done where, you know, they'll put a couple basketball courts in there and have some meeting rooms and, you know, have some stuff locally for people. It would be great.
No, absolutely. There's definitely some community centers like that. I'm going to take a moment here to introduce our county attorney, Ms. Bridgette Smith Lawson. Thank you for being here. I gave her some of the remaining chips, so she's going to participate too. All right. Now, thank you everyone for giving us comments, feedback. I want you to listen to what your neighbors were saying. But now I'm going to ask you to do the first hard thing I'm going to ask you to do tonight. I want you to take one chip. This is your first dollar. Collectively, everyone has $100. Okay, so this is our community. I want you to take your first chip and if you had to put your first dollar on which of these 5 broad categories is the most important to you, where you would want the county to make an investment, is that your first dollar should go in law enforcement, infrastructure, social services, our community resources, or health, or even our court system. Where would you put your first dollar? So if everyone could please stand up and take your first dollar stack and put him, here we go.
Yeah, I'm rich.
There we go. So your first dollar.
Who would have thought it'd be worthwhile to come here and get money?
Finally.
Well, we'll give it to you, but we're going to make you spend it right away. All right. I am waiting for a few folks. Where do you want to put your first dollar?
And you can refer to those that are handouts for what falls under what.
No, your first dollar. First dollar. First dollar.
I'll take my second $1.
Yeah, just $1. Has everyone put collectively? Yes.
May we have one on the side?
Okay. 6, 6, 8. Yep. I have 9 people.
Throw one over here, I'll give you one back.
All right.
I'm
So,
from Chicago, that's how we work.
actually, that's where we got this idea from. Okay. So here is where we are. I want to go around and kind of say, with your first dollar, everyone collectively, very interesting. 3 folks placed it on law enforcement, 3 folks placed it on community resources and social services, and 3 folks placed it on infrastructure. No one in this group put their first dollar on health or court system support. Well, let me just ask this. For those of you who put it on infrastructure, what specifically made you want to say, this is where I got to put my first dollar? 3 of y'all put it here, so.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry, I'll just say this, community safety is like a pillar. If you don't
So
have
safe
safety-
roads, run, that's all infrastructure.
Well, law enforcement rather.
Oh, you put it on law enforcement. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
So just having a safe community, if you don't have safety, you just have instability. And so for me, that's like the premise that just didn't be able to go.
Gotcha. Grace?
I put it on infrastructure because it's one of the fastest growing counties in the region, and we need to keep up with our growth and our population patterns, so infrastructure is important.
Absolutely. Pedro?
Yeah, I agree. The forum is like the foundation.
Mm-hmm. Sir?
I did social services. I think
Why?
Just, making sure that the most vulnerable people, I think, in the community are taken care of, and making sure the social fabric is.
All the old people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I also chose social services, because I think if we don't take care of our community, then it leads to more crime and more problems, more, depression, more health issues. So it's a well-balanced approach, but I also selfishly knew that some of you would pick law enforcement and infrastructure, so. thank
I
you
gotcha.
for your choices.
Sandy?
So I didn't choose health because I would like to believe that within community resources and social services, health is already included in that. Because I know I said health, but yeah, for sure. I would think these would be tied together.
So I'll just say, as we move forward, I don't disagree. All of these are connected. When we put in health, we are talking about specific departments and services. So if you look at your sheet, think about that's where you're making that investment. I'm putting X amount in those services. I'm putting X amount in these services. So just think about it from that perspective as we move forward. All right? Where do you put?
Infrastructure.
Why?
Like if it's become too crowded. Even coming from Harris County, it gets exhausting crowded.
Gotcha.
Now, I put law enforcement because after living around the world for 31 years, one of the first things I look at is security, especially when I'm raising young kids. So it was always about security for me. One of the main reasons I moved to Fort Bend County is because after looking at everything, I looked at security. Not to mention that I realized that the courthouse was right around the corner from my house.
And
I had a
prison's
problem.
right down the road.
Yeah, I had a problem with that, but at the same time, it was all about security for me.
Gotcha. Sir?
So I want the infrastructure because I think, as a county, we need to have adequate, decent roads for people to be able to get around. People move out into this area because they want it a little more open. They don't want to be in a traffic jam where it takes you 45 minutes to go 2 miles down the street to get to your house.
No, absolutely.
And it's been like that for close to 30 years that I've lived here.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about this.
All right. So for the next stage, now we're going to fill in the rest of it. So you can do it all at once. You can watch what everyone else is doing, but I need all of y'all to put the rest of your money down and spread it out. Remember, you're creating a county budget collectively. So we need to make investments, but y'all are determining how much and what goes where. So go ahead, take a couple.
So now we can put multiple points
Mhm.
on one.
Before you move on from that, the important thing to think about with this first one was, like, this is the most important thing to you. You learn, in church, you're supposed to give your first back to God and all that. Like, this is the thing that for you is the most sacred thing. And so it's very interesting where you chose to spend that first dollar. So yeah, now you're going to spend the rest of the money. And these are based on your priorities and the weight that you give to each area. So
We have 10 to start with?
Everyone had 12 to start with. So
And I had to get those off somebody else's pile.
those are all yours.
Oh, that's all mine.
Oh,
You have to square it up.
if everyone wants to.
these are your tax dollars.
That's right. Our tax-paying friend Ross needs some more.
All right. So for those who are watching, right now what everyone is doing is they are putting the rest of their cash down and helping collectively. What we're going to see is how, not only where people want to make the investment, but what the share is among all these different categories. Go ahead.
Stick with my bets.
All right. Does everyone put it in? All right. I'm going to have someone help me put these together.
If we could.
In stacks of
stack
5,
it at
it's usually
5,
easier.
Please, thank you.
There we go.
That's right.
Let the chips fall
So
where
it's
they
4.
may.
Oh, wow.
Exactly, yeah. 20.
After I saw that animal services.
All right, so let's take a look at these. We have, is that just one? All right. So we have for infrastructure an even 25. For community resources, we collectively said 21. For law enforcement, only 17. Health, we have 20 even. And then for court system support, we have 14. All right.
I would actually say you're concerned about law enforcement. Probably the reason that there's fewer chips on that, I think a lot of people are pretty comfortable with the amount of law enforcement we have here, and we live in a pretty safe area. If we were in an area that had a lot of crime, and it is growing, so don't get me wrong, you'd probably see a lot more chips on there, right?
And I'm glad you brought it up because that was my reason for moving to Fort Bend County. Like I said, I've been gone for 31 years.
Yeah.
and I was looking at areas where, you know, I didn't have to worry about a lot of things
Absolutely.
like that.
Sure.
Yeah, because if there was, you move
I
away.
would-
right?
I would move somewhere else.
I'm with you.
Interesting theory. What other things do you guys notice with the community here?
We want more health services, health related, and that covers a broad category.
Right. So we want more investment in health. We're looking at an even fifth of our budget. We want to invest in health. Here we said a little bit, a quarter of the budget. We want an infrastructure. I thought that was interesting. Okay. Court system support. We have a large court system, but you know, everyone put in about 14, nothing too much. But yeah, after court system, the lowest investment was law enforcement. Here's an interesting thing. We've done this now for 3 years, and everywhere, law enforcement usually is the bottom 1 or 2 bucket that we see. So the feeling and the sentiment is actually shared. A lot of folks want to see a lot of investment in community resources and health. So that's just fascinating from what we've seen. Anything else? Do you guys like this budget? Do you think if you were to see it, or does someone want to be like, you know what? I don't see a lot in law enforcement. I think we need to put more there. Does anyone feel that way?
Oh, I think we could always appreciate more law enforcement. That's why we hire law enforcement to be here in New Territory all the time, right?
So would you want to?
Everybody likes it. It makes you feel good and warm and fuzzy, and you don't have to worry so much about your kids and, you know, some crazy guy walking down the street with a gun.
Sure. So do you feel it's fair in our budget, we're investing only 17% of our budget in law enforcement? Do we think more? I'm asking. This is just an open question.
It is just that our perception is not that we need to put a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we need to put money in it.
Yeah.
But we need to put money to keep the law enforcement officers here.
Right.
Here's the question I'm asking, whether it's this bucket or I'm just agitating right now. If it's this bucket or something else, would you want more investment in any of these services based off of the share you see on this table as a community?
And this is for helpful context. So the most important thing you said is infrastructure. So you put $25 there. What you said second to that is community resources or social services. Then it was health, then law enforcement, probation, and then the last one was court system support.
You can see there's more money on the ones where we're lacking of those services.
Exactly.
There's less money on the ones where we have the services and they're pretty good already.
Okay.
So one of the ways you're looking at this is where we want more investment. Okay.
Exactly.
So normally if we were to move, I would have a proposition, but y'all are really happy with this budget, so we can cut this.
Y'all think this is good?
No one wants to propose any changes? Thumbs up for keeping this budget?
One specific question, the way the budget's written, would it mean that we can maintain the status quo services of law enforcement in the court system, or would they lose out?
No, so that's not necessarily what is being said here per se, but you all are operating basically as y'all are members of Commissioners Court right now. And so you're allocating the funds and where you choose to fit that. You've said that, a fifth of our budget needs to go to, a quarter of our budget needs to go to infrastructure. If you feel pretty comfortable and safe about that, okay, great.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know where the money is allocated right now, because, if we're putting $16 on police, if presently we're happy with the level of it, but it's at $18, I certainly don't want to decrease that.
Sure.
So it would be nice to know what the present budget is, because I was thinking that we're looking to increase these budgets.
This has nothing, you're just building a budget, period. From zero scratch, it's not saying increase or decrease, it's saying this is what weight we should
I
give to
think
each of these.
without knowing what's there, we don't have a basis to say if we need to put more money or less money on things like law enforcement.
Sure, and that's
So
intentional.
That's part of why
Yeah.
we asked you to start with the ideal. What is the ideal state in the community, right? And now you have money to build the ideal. And so the question is, are you comfortable with the distribution of resources?
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
All right.
I'm thinking there's a lack of data here. You can't make a sound decision unless you know what's happening right now.
All right. I see 6 thumbs, so that's majority. I'll count that. We have an abstention over here. Thank you guys for participating. What I will say is normally, if there is a disagreement, if someone was to say, I want to move, say, $1 from infrastructure to law enforcement, what I would ask you all to do is how many people support? Can you make your case for it? Can you convince your neighbors that this is a good change? And then y'all would vote on it and really make it happen. And we do this a couple times. People realize, oh man, it's really easy to put money down. It's really hard to move it and negotiate it. And Commissioner is one of 5 people on this board who makes the decision for what goes in the budget and how it gets spent. So that's the kind of.
Makes sense though. If we put 25 here, if when we started this, you said currently there's 25 here, and then we're looking at it as we want to allocate more to this one or less to that one. Right now, we don't know if we're taking away or giving more to any of these.
No, we don't.
Right? And so we want to judge the level of services that we have now, and do we need to increase that service or decrease that service? We don't know that without that information. So as much as I love you guys, you were all wrong.
I was gonna say, this is a really good transition to the next slide, and then what we're gonna also do is hand out paper surveys for y'all to then individually decide based on the reveal of last year's budget, and then how you would like to actually delegate those dollars. And we take that survey feedback, we put together a memo, and then we hand it to the commissioner to inform decision-making process during the budget year.
All right, so thank y'all so much. This has been the least confrontational group. We're going to transition back to our seats over to the screen.
We're going to finish up the presentation. We're going to finish up the presentation.
I wasn't supposed to do that. Oh no. I was not supposed to. I didn't realize it was all plugged into there.
Did you hit the power?
Yeah, I turned the power off here.
Did you hit this already?
Yeah.
This power is back up.
I hope I don't have to go through the whole.
Well, no, it should be good. The slide is right there somewhere.
Dang. Not using my thinking cap. Because this isn't powered on for whatever reason. Yeah. Okay, there we go. It's back. It's on. Yeah. Hello. Monitor master volume is all the way down. This is plugged in here. You tested the mic earlier? Hello. Yeah, it's not registering anything at all. It's like, the question is that on? All right, perfect. That came back. Is that on? Hello. It's not picking up anything. Hello. Testing. No. Yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah. Oh well. It's a small group. We're good. All right. So we're gonna bring it right on back in. So it's usually interesting. Typically what we do is we reconvene. This is our smallest group we've had thus far. We reconvene, and it's interesting to then see what each of the groups has come up with and how different the budgets are from group 1 versus group 2.
since we have one group, you all heard how y'all distributed your dollars, and then never have we ever had a group that has agreed with their first budget. Usually there's a lot of, well, no, we need to change this. It's very interesting to hear the discourse, but y'all have been pretty harmonious on how y'all think the money should be spent. Man, I wish Commissioners Court were that easy, where we're all on the same page, no problem, good to go. Let's actually look at how the county allocated your money. Right now, we're in fiscal year 2026, and this is how that money was allocated. This is for every $100. Fort Bend County spent $15 on healthcare, $6 on social services, $14 on infrastructure, $27 on court system support, and $38 out of every $100 is spent on law enforcement and probation. And again, compared to what y'all did, y'all spent $20 on health, $21 on community resources and social services compared to the $6, $25 on infrastructure, $14 on court system support, and $17 on law enforcement and probation. So seeing this, what are your initial thoughts? The budget you built versus the budget we're currently operating under?
Well, clearly we didn't have this information because if the cost of keeping the law enforcement and court system is about 60%, so we should have covered that part.
I would say arguably probably invested more in social services. It's like preventing people from interacting with law enforcement.
Yes.
You know?
Yep, and we hear that a lot. Sorry. Here, do you have the other mic? We could just pass it around.
Yeah, I think it's more education, because we're missing something for us to be so low on law enforcement and court system. I think it's the education on our side. Why do the other departments, not other departments, why do the others feel that the court system and law enforcement is so more important? So what are we missing for us to rate it so low? So I think the education, the lack of education that we don't know, the inside of the law enforcement and the court system. I think that would help.
I would like to add that that's a good point that you make up, because I think Commissioner McCoy is looking at it from the whole county perspective, right? And we're looking at it from our own specific neighborhoods, right? So
it is like
I am, from the Mission Bend area, and that makes me really happy when you're creating a Mission Bend community center for seniors, because we don't have anything like that. Nothing like that for our elderly to go to. So I know my mom will appreciate it, her friends will appreciate it. So I just think it's maybe near different silos. Like you said, he sees the whole county, we just see our silos.
Any other thoughts about your budget compared to theirs? You said surprise?
I'm surprised that the costs are that high.
I'm thinking court system and law enforcement, does that responsibility lie mostly on the county, whereas infrastructure is probably shared a lot with the state, like other local and federal partners, right? So who's really carrying the burden and the responsibility of that budget is maybe here as well.
That's a good point. Okay. Any other thoughts? No? Go ahead, Pedro.
Clearly, we see that we need to, if we don't have any information and we just our perception, we see that we need to invest more in social services, but that's not what that's not the fact. So if we get this information, we say, why are we investing so little? We feel that we need to invest more, while on the other hand, we have 60% of the budget plus on the other two parts that are there. We said, okay, we are covered.
Yeah.
So,
yep. No.
I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of discussions, and we will try to move eventually from those 38 to the little 6, but the conversation is going to be big.
Yeah. No, that's good. And so let's talk. Any other thoughts? Yes.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's right. It reflects our value system too. I'm sorry, I know that you're only one of the commissioners, but social services and healthcare, that's really astounding, because we're talking about veterans services and other county services that are necessary. the libraries, community development, emergency management. And then we also go to the behavioral health, and there is a behavioral health crisis. The lack of affordable health care also translates to the lack of mental health care. And the lack of that also translates to increased need for law enforcement. So maybe we can think about our values and the way we want to prioritize our budget according to our values and uplift those who are most vulnerable. I think we'll see a correlation in decreasing the amount of money spent on law enforcement, and not necessarily the court systems, but perhaps in some ways it's connected. But it's a sad reflection of our values as a county, because I think those are necessary. So
that's
thank
good.
you.
This idea just came to me, team. You know, God willing, we have another time to do this in a future year. But we should probably, y'all remember there used to be commercials where they would set up a poster or a big, board in a public space and ask people to fill stuff out. That would be dope to do in like Sugar Land Town Center and Brazos Town Center and, out in Missouri City somewhere, or Katy, La Centera and Katy. That's another venue or a way for us to get feedback, because it would actually be interesting to get people's responses out in public, not just here, people who choose to come to a open meeting. So sorry, just a thought to not mark down as we're taking notes. Let's talk a little bit about why the budget looks this way. So one thing to note is that over a third, yes, ma'am, go ahead. Yeah, no, go for it.
Before we go on to the next thing, also, is there any evaluations done on the budgets that are allocated to ensure that the money is being spent properly? Because sometimes just throwing money at something is not necessarily an answer. So what type of accountability measures are being taken to make sure that all of those various departments and entities are functioning according to? Because I know with the animal shelter, I know a lot of money is dedicated to that. However, the results are not in line with the amount of money spent. So there are things to review, perhaps. So I ask, what is the county doing in general?
Yeah, and so just to answer that very, very briefly, we don't actually do an organizational-wide audit. So the interesting thing is we have about 85, I believe, executive departments, like the larger departments, and quite a number of those are led by elected officials. And they are constitutionally over their own domain. We set a budget, but we can't tell them we cannot necessarily control how they spend it per se. They come to us and say, hey, we need this amount of money, and we ask why. But we have not yet been able to get everybody to agree to do an organizational-wide performance audit. We can do that for the departments that the Commissioner's Court has direct purview over, but we cannot make a department, go participate in that sort of or organizational audit. Say again?
Can't make like an inspector. A lot of those guys are looking for work now.
Yeah, they are indeed. But it just makes too much sense, right? But each individual, because we've been talking about that, and I've mentioned that in the last 2 budget cycles, that we need to do some sort of like performance audit for we need to audit all of our departments. But that's one of the biggest challenges is people have to opt in to participation, but not, we can't force it on the elected officials.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that something that can be forced over a commissioner's vote to change that? Because as a member of the public, we want to see accountability measures and not to have, accounting and independent auditing and have it, people or entities police themselves in that sense is a little frightening, because these are our tax dollars and there's only a limited amount.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And I think one is getting the votes on Commissioner's Court to even enter into a contract with a third party to come in and try to do some management consulting and performance and financial auditing and performance auditing and all that. But the other part of it is how we get buy-in from our departments that are led by elected officials to participate in something like that. Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, and again, but we have to start somewhere, and how we start that conversation is important. I'll talk about how you can participate in the process of maybe advocating for that on the tail end. So here's what I'll mention is that 1/3 of our county budget goes to unfunded mandates. These are requirements that the state puts on us, but they don't provide money for it. The important thing to note is that the county is a political subdivision of the state. We exist to carry out state law here on the local level. Unlike cities that have home rule authority and they can create ordinances, they can do zoning and things like that, the county does not have that power. We can only do explicitly what the state says that we have the power to do. We don't have a lot of wiggle room outside of that. There are some areas where we get to some gray areas. It's particularly when we might get grant funds, and that allows us to do certain other things, but we cannot make up our own, like, we believe we should do this. One thing we hear a lot about are noise ordinances, right? Why is there construction happening at this hour? Or I remember a story, people firing guns over in the Four Corners area at midnight. They called the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department comes out. The person says, "Oh, well, there was a snake in my backyard. I was just shooting at the snake." All right, no one seems to be hurt. There's nothing we can do to stop that, right? In unincorporated parts of the county, because the state doesn't give us the ability to prohibit certain activities. You cannot fire fireworks inside the city limits of Sugar Land or Rosenberg, for instance, but you can in unincorporated parts of the county, whether or not the neighborhood likes it. Because we don't have ordinance making authority. Those are the sorts of things we advocate for to the state. Sorry, I digress. But you look at almost 40% of our county budget goes to law enforcement. One part is because of how many law enforcement personnel we have. I talked about over 1,000 law enforcement officers or personnel in the county out of 3,500 staff that we have in the entire county. Right. So you think about that, almost a third of our county staff is in law enforcement. And then so you think about that too, right? Salary costs, and then how much it costs to keep an officer when we're competing with other jurisdictions. But we spend almost 40% of our budget there. Every session, so our state legislature meets every other year, only for a few months. And every session, there are new laws, new mandates. School districts really get hit by this a lot with unfunded mandates, what teachers have to do in the classroom, but the state doesn't provide money, right? And so that's why you see those struggles there. Locally, property taxes are used to pay for state mandates here in the county. But again, the state doesn't collect a property tax. With all those other sources I told y'all about, they don't always, all that money doesn't just flow back to us. Oftentimes that goes to fund projects that state reps or the governor or the state senators want to see. And we have to advocate for some of that to flow our way or to our priorities. Yes. Yep.
How much of the money from our county comes back to our county?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. We don't have that data. But that is something that we should ask. And it's not that hard to calculate, because I'll tell you how we would calculate it. The amount of grant funds that we receive from the state directly, we would have to figure that out, right? The other thing we'd have to calculate is in how much is being spent by state agencies on things like from Texas Department of Transportation on roadways. I don't know. So that's a good question. Mercy's making note of that. That's good. This is why these feedback sessions are really, really important. Yes. So this is important to note. Just the other part is we receive federal grant funds too. We've seen cuts to federal grant funds in the last 12 months. We actually have had to lay people off as a result of some of those grant programs ending early. We had to lay off people in public health and health and human services. We are looking at some of the grants that are not being renewed in emergency management and the potential. We got briefed on that earlier this year or last year on some of the Homeland Security grants that are being completely cut, where we're having to contend with bringing those folks on over to the general fund budget too. So those are really important to note. This is what your tax rate has looked like over since 2019. We have lowered the tax rate consistently since we've been here. This past year, we actually kept the tax rate the same. We've never raised the tax rate. Part of it is statutory. The state has put a 3.5% revenue cap on counties and cities. Our budget cannot grow more, or the revenue we collect cannot grow more than 3.5% year over year without us going to the voters and asking for permission to do that, right? And the challenge is for fast growth county, we're growing faster than 3.5% year over year. And so how we keep up with that service delivery is super important. Sorry, I'm getting the time, but this is what that trend has looked like with our tax rate year over year. And so people often say, yeah, you're lowering our tax rate every year, but my tax bill keeps going up. The amount of taxes that you pay rises. And that is true. Part of that is because of the increase in your property value, your taxable value, right? And also keeping in mind, again, we're one of many entities that you pay taxes to. But people have, it's come up in years past, well, why don't y'all just lower the tax rate enough where I don't have to pay anymore, right? You lower it, yes, but it's not enough for me to pay nothing, no new taxes, right? And so we put this chart together to show what might be the impact, right, versus the savings to the individual taxpayer. So in 2025, say that your house, the appraised value for your house was $300,000, and the county tax rate in 2025 was about 43 cents for every $100 in value. That's that 0.4265 was the tax rate. So your tax bill on a $300,000 house would have been about $1,279.50. That's what you would have paid to the county. In 2026, say it went up 10%, right? You had your 10% appraisal cap, and we know that our property values have been rising more than that year over year. But 10% increase you saw in your taxable value, so it went up to $330,000. If we had the tax rate just stayed the same, then your tax bill would have gone up to $1,407.45. What it would have meant is just keeping the tax rate the same, $60 million more on average. If we took the average household a home value and keeping the tax rate the same, the county would have seen an increase in $60 million. You would have paid, what did that come out? $127 more in taxes and gotten $60 million more in services to the county, right? If we would have cut it to where you would have paid $0 new, so you would have seen an individual savings, or it wouldn't have gone up at all, right? So it would have been the exact same. We would have, on average, had to cut the county budget by $60 million. That's a pretty hefty amount of money. Yeah, go ahead.
Really quick, what is the total county budget?
So this past year, the county budget, I believe it was about $745 million. Mm-hmm.
And then is each precinct allotted the same amount of money?
No. So how can I explain this most effectively? That budget goes to fund everything in the county, right? And so it's not like in social services, you are only going to spend up to this amount for this precinct or that. It is just distributed generally, right? And even exactly, it's because our budget is centralized. So it's not like, only like each of us has our own HHS and our own EMS and that's not how the county is structured, right? And I will say we're even different than, say, Harris County, where each of their commissioners is technically also a road commissioner. Back in the 90s, Fort Bend County centralized that and created a road commissioner. So even that, there's a portion of our tax rate, if I went back to the previous slide, where it's a road and bridge fund, right? In Harris County, that road and bridge fund is further broken down by each precinct, and Fort Bend County is centralized. And so we kind of spend the money where there's need in the county, right? It actually is a bit more efficient that way too. Yeah. But sorry, just to show for reference, savings to you, you know, of $127, right? In keeping the tax rate the same versus lowering it, where you saw a $0 increase, but a $60 million budget impact to the county, right? That means possibly laying people off, cutting services. But instead, what you got was last year, we increased the number of medics that we had in our EMS. We added, I think, 2 new ambulances on the street. It is increasing the number of, I think we increased the number of staff we had in Health and Human Services to be able to provide support, those sorts of things. And we saw an increase in personnel. The biggest part of the increase in our last year's budget was on personnel, both in how we doing our salary increase on personnel and adding new positions. Yep, go for it.
Can I add now that you fill this in on the total budget,
Mhm.
745 million, losing 60 million is about 8%
Mm-hmm.
of the budget.
Correct. So huge impact. Yep. So I'm just going to talk a little bit to round us out. One, I want to thank you for participating. This is a really big deal that you came out to spend your Monday evening with us, especially like the first day of the week. It's the hardest day usually to power through. So you came in to be with us. So pat on the back for each of you. Thank you. Let's talk about how the budget process works. So we are right now setting budget policy. We just passed our schedule last Commissioner's Court for the budget development process. That usually happens January, February. March through May is when departments start submitting their requests to the budget office. What are your budget requests? You know, to buy new things, more materials, new staff. Those requests are submitted from March to May. Then in June, at May, we actually, the end of May, we actually start our public hearings on proposed budgets, right? So we hear from all of the departments that don't meet target. We, what I also should mention right now in February, the budget department meets with each member of court to get our priorities, to hear, hey, we're prioritizing pay increases for our existing staff over new staff, or this is where I take the data you give me and we say, hey, the community's really told us they want to see more done in EMS because response times are a problem, or whatever that might look like. The budget office sets a target and says that your budget, based off of what we think appraised values might be, proposed revenue, whatever, either it's 0 increase for each department, or, you know, a 1% increase. They give that to the departments. And for those departments that don't meet target, they have to come to Commissioner's Court and tell us why. What is your need and why has it gone over target? So you'll see the preliminary budget hearings happen end of May into June. July, we start getting to some recommendations. We'll get a proposed budget in August, and then we'll have another round of hearings on the proposed budget. People get a chance to participate, and then we adopt our budget in September, towards the end of September, and we start the new fiscal year October 1. So really important that you participate in this process. The preliminary budget hearings will be May 11th through May 13th. This is when you hear the departments come and talk about what their needs are. We, and our county attorney is here, she knows, we had to fight to offer a time for public comment in this budget process, because that has not been the case in the past. Usually it's just departments come talk. We, you know, talk to each other about the budget, and then that's it, right? And then maybe you come to the Commissioner's Court where we get ready to set the tax rate and adopt the budget and give your public comment. But by that point, it's already cooked, it's already done. And so you now have at the beginning of each day an opportunity to come and speak publicly. What we're also going to work on, we usually break in the middle of the day for lunch and come back. What we're going to work on is trying to get an opportunity at the beginning of when we come back from that recess. For those folks who can't come in and at the beginning of the day at 9 o'clock and maybe want to come on your lunch break, giving an opportunity for you to come and speak. So we're going to try to get our budget officer to put that in the schedule as well. Your feedback is important. Also, your participation is important. It has been enlightening for some people who come and hear departments talk about some of their needs and why they're requesting what they're requesting. For those folks who say, no, y'all are just spending more money. Well, it's interesting to hear our department heads talk about what are the challenges they're having. And I remember one guy who's, you know, very much, you're wasting money. He came up to me and Commissioner Prestige after he came to one of these sessions year before last, and I was like, wow, that was eye-opening. I really didn't realize that the county did this or that departments were facing that. So please tune in online. We stream them live, but if you can, come in person if you have the time and then make your voice heard. These are your opportunities. So I think that's it. We do have some projects on the one-pager that are happening in and around the community. Take a look at that. What's happening? Okay, yes, I'll mention that. We provide these every time I go to an HOA meeting or we hold a town hall. We like to provide this sheet to you so you know what the county's doing in your area. And we are in the city of Sugar Land, so we're not responsible for everything in the city, like the roads and all that stuff, law enforcement inside the city. City of Sugar Land takes care of that, but where we can partner, we definitely do. And one of those areas is on safety, identifying problematic intersections. So we've partnered with a nonprofit called Citizens for Road Safety to get data from residents on where have there been those near misses, or where are those areas where when you're walking you feel unsafe, and we might be able to make it safer through some sort of roadway design or illumination or whatever. Right here on that sheet, there's a QR code, scan it. Please take the survey, and that data is what we're going to use to prioritize some of that work. Last thing I will say is you got an individual survey when you came in. Oh, Ali's going to pass out the individual survey. Please, especially now that you know how the money is spent and why. Sorry, one thing I didn't mention on law enforcement, our county jail, we spend so much money on in the law enforcement line item because of a lot of people there are in our county jail that should be in a state facility for mental health, but there are not enough state beds available. And so you and I as taxpayers here at the local level have to pay for people who should be in a state facility to stay here. And while they're here, we're paying for their medical treatments. When people aren't able to get a trial fast enough and they're waiting in our county jail, the state does not reimburse a penny of that. You and I as local taxpayers have to provide it. There are people getting medicines that are costing us hundreds of dollars per day to provide that medicine. The state does not reimburse that. So we talk about unfunded mandates. That's what that really looks like practically. And so that's why that budget is so big. But now that you've been educated on what the county's responsibility is, what that budget looks like, please fill out that survey, turn it in before you leave. And that's data that we'll use to provide to our department heads. But again, thank y'all so much for coming. I'll hang out for a little while longer.
Thank you.